Hi, I'm Corey,
And I'm Woody.
I'm Marieke.
and this is the ISOcast. And then we play a bunch of music. It's pretty cool.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's it.
We're done.
That's it.
Job well done.
Is that a beer that I saw you sip
It
from?
is beer.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. I think it's Dutch.
It is not beer o'clock here in Canada. What time is it where you are?
It's 5 in the afternoon.
Oh, it's like 2 past beer o'clock.
Perfect.
Exactly. I mean, it's only my first one, so.
So where in the world are you?
I'm in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
All right.
How's it going there?
But Corona. Or we actually say Corona, and I know in a lot of other countries they say COVID-19. It's kicking our ass.
We're COVID people, right? Woody, are we COVID?
I think we're COVID now. I think we've changed. I think it was Corona at first. Like when it
Yeah.
first started, it was the coronavirus. And now I think people like saying COVID-19 because they don't have to say the word virus.
And COVID's a lot easier to roll your eyes to. COVID.
COVID. Rolls off the tongue a bit better.
I think it's either Corona or then because we speak Spanish a lot at home, it's COVID. El COVID or la COVID.
I'm sure the folks at Corona Beer are happy that we're saying COVID now.
Well, the other day we were playing, I don't know if you would call it football. I guess we might call it soccer. I have no idea. But we were playing Mexico and they actually had a player called Corona.
Oh.
Obviously, we played terribly, so let's not talk about it.
And then was this one of those empty stadium soccer matches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the thing? I don't know about you, but in the United States, they have this thing where you can pay to have a life-size cardboard cutout of either yourself or someone else made, and then they put it in a seat for you. Yep, that's the face. Yeah, that's a thing.
That's a thing.
No, that's not a thing here. No.
Okay.
We did go into partial lockdown again this week, so they are not permitting any kind of audience at games, not even if it's amateurs. They're closing a lot of stuff again, restaurants again, everything. It's not going well.
It seems pretty on par for what we're experiencing here then. It's comforting to see we're all in this together. Did you go through the cycle like we did in the spring? And maybe you were ahead of us because you're in Europe. So did you do the lockdown thing in the spring? Because there were, I don't know, I've read some things about the Netherlands that they were, I don't know, ahead of the curve or so to speak, and they did some kind of different things, but maybe you can say if that was true or not.
I mean, different, I'm not sure. I'm in the south and we started even a little bit earlier. I don't know if that's a good thing, but we did. Yeah. Like end of February, I think. Because it was carnival and it was everything, so that was sort of spreading, and because people came back from like winter vacations, skiing in Italy and Austria and countries like that, in France, and they took the virus back. So I've been working at home since virtually the first days of March. So it's been a long time. I think I've been at work about 3 times or something. But yeah, we always had pretty quickly, I think mid-March, we went into what they called an intelligent lockdown, I don't know what's intelligent about that. That it basically meant that we were allowed to go outside. I know some countries were completely restricted. Like in France, they weren't allowed to go outside. Everyone suddenly wanted a dog because otherwise you weren't allowed to go outside. We were always allowed to go outside. So we would go for walks or we were allowed to do grocery shopping or whatever. Shops had a while that they were closed, and then pretty quickly things were just restricted, but not so much closed. I think in March, April, we had the biggest thing where restaurants and everything were closed. So it was a lockdown, but we had some freedom. And now they said, okay, we went back into a partial lockdown, which means that some of the professions, like for example, hairdressers and everything were closed before, and they are still open now. but they had to close restaurants and everything. They closed those again.
Woody, since we last spoke, I think I was very cocky about how green our zone was here.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I was like, we're in a green zone, baby. We're good. And we're like, it's super red now. Like,
is it? Oh,
yeah,
no.
We're like red as hell here. And I guess in Toronto, it's you guys are super locked down now.
I mean, yeah, it's super red as well. Rouge, I guess, if you want to say. You were very cocky the last show. Yeah. Quebec and Canada has colors, I guess we're going with.
Yeah.
But I think we were red last time we did the show, maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't know, 3 weeks ago perhaps.
I think I listened to it, yeah.
We were red then, even if the officials who were in charge of locking it down or otherwise didn't say it was red. So I mean, the numbers here were going up, and so now we.
We're sorry, you have reached a number. We're sorry, it is not necessary to dial.
There we go.
This is why we edit. Let me try that again. Thank you, Woody.
All right.
Somebody's
I didn't know it was my tech issue.
Somebody has to produce this show.
And we're back.
Yeah, so we did a room switch. We stopped recording for a while. We're recording again.
Downstairs.
We're recording again.
It's rule number 1 of a podcast. Record it. I was just commenting, and I think our fans
Hi, Mom.
would like to hear this.
Your mom.
I was asking because I'd mentioned I have a colleague in Stockholm where it's just kind of it's a free for all there, and Marieke, you were saying that because of that, if I understand correctly, their vision of it and the rest of Europe's vision of their approach is differing.
Well, I mean, at first, people were saying, oh, you should take an example maybe, or what are they doing right that we're doing wrong? Like, what is happening? And now it seems to be, or at least the last months, because I think it's already changed. I'm not sure what the situation in Sweden is right now, but it was going really poorly. They were, a red country as it is, rouge. And is that worse than red? It sounds worse.
Rojo.
Rouge, I think it's softer. It's more like it's like an aubergine. It's not so bad.
It's like a blusher.
Yeah.
It's optimistic.
So I'm hearing a little bit like Sweden is kind of the US of Europe right now. It's like, you guys can do whatever you want, but nobody can come and go.
I mean, I think the Sweden itself wasn't restricting as much as other countries were saying to their people, like, don't go there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because a lot of people a few months ago, in May, June, July, were pointing the people who didn't believe in the lockdowns and thought that we can just kind of go ahead with life as normal. We're pointing to Sweden as an example of, see, we can do this. They're doing it. We can do it.
No.
And I mean, every country is different. Sweden's population isn't the size of a lot of countries, and etc. But now we're seeing that they tried it, but it did not work. So
no, it did not work.
Is there like a Swede shaming in Europe where you see someone, you can tell they're Swedish, and you're just kind of like, uh-oh.
No. And right now we can't really say anything as a country here because I'm not sure if they're worst in Europe, but we're right up there right now.
Oh.
And
sorry.
More and more countries like Germany said, don't go first 2 parts of the Netherlands. I don't know if you remember that I ever told you about the difference between the Netherlands and Holland. But they basically...
I do, but I wish you would tell us again.
Please
because
tell it.
I've never really forgotten that.
That's really good. It's been a few years. Sorry.
Years.
It's all jumbled up, my sense of time. Yeah, so Holland is just 2 provinces here. South Holland, and North Holland. So that has the biggest population density as well, I guess. And a lot of people, if they're tourists, they go to Amsterdam, they don't get any further. They just see the center, and obviously they haven't seen anything of the country. They've only seen other tourists. And Rotterdam, The Hague, where the government is, that's all in those same 2 provinces. And a lot of people who are from there will actually abroad also say, I'm from Holland, whereas people from other parts in the country will say that I'm from the Netherlands. Because they don't want to be seen as someone who's from there, I guess. Or they're like, no, the country is bigger than that. So at first, Germany, Belgium were saying, no, you're not allowed to go to Holland because the cases were going up there a lot. And they're still the worst. Like, there's still a couple of cities where it's definitely, the restrictions are even worse, even stricter, but the rest of the country is just as far ahead. And the cases were going up, but it was also the testing policy of the government that wasn't necessarily the best thing to do. So they're blaming everyone who was still doing parties, but definitely the government has some things that they could have done better. So now the whole country is a no-go zone.
It's really difficult when we see a lot of countries have the science, but follow the politics, you know, at least in our neck of the woods, as we say. That's one of the biggest issues, is that those countries that are showing successful containment, you know, one, are largely enjoying the luxury of geography. Right? If you're an island, it's a lot easier. And then the second is that those leaders are following the science. But the third observation that my partners pointed out frequently is they're often led by women, which is a huge difference I've noted in the success rate of containing the virus in the country. The men, you know, when they're politicians, they're like, they kind of think they know everything, and I don't think they do. What are you, man? Would you agree with that?
I can't disagree with it. I mean, it is what it is. You see a lot of the countries that are doing well, and the leaders are women, and the ones who aren't, they have male leaders. So I think you can't disagree with that sentiment for sure. Marieke, I'm very ignorant about this. Who is the leader of the Netherlands?
It is a man. Yeah, there's no he's been our prime minister for 10 years now, I think. Yeah.
What is the gentleman's name?
Mark Rutte.
Oh.
So you have one of those political systems. There's no term for whomever is elected. They can.
I mean, they're not elected so much themselves. Oh. We still have. What's the official name? I should know this. But
are you a constitutional monarchy?
Yes. Sometimes my Spanish comes out. Yeah, we're a constitutional monarchy. So we still have a king and a queen. Actually, our queen is Argentinian.
Ooh.
And
this is interesting.
And our prime minister is part of the party, and the party that is the biggest in whatever election came up. They are usually allowed to choose their prime minister, but it's not like we as the people are allowed to pick like our prime minister.
Does your monarchy play a heavy role in the politics of the country, or is it more like, you know, you guys are on our money and it's awesome?
No, they represent us in certain things like state dinners, or I do think they do certain jobs. I'm not completely sure what they do. I think they officially need to sign a new cabinet when it's elected, and you know, they came to an agreement of which parties are going to be the cabinet.
Okay.
Then they need to sign, or they are sort of involved in that process, I think, but they're not technically. They're supposed to be sort of politically neutral, I think.
Are they on the money?
No idea.
Have you done away with currency? Because we've got the queen on everything. She's everywhere still. Yeah.
She's on everything. Lizzie, yeah, she's all over the place.
I'm not. The thing is, I pay by card all the time. So if you ask me right now, like, who's in our currency, the other thing is that we have euros.
So
they have
right?
have different like images from all of Europe. So I guess we have our king on it. We should do.
The world's gone cashless pretty quick. I really like that. We have some pretty funny money here in Canada. We went the way of, if you remember in Costa Rica, I think you were there at that transition where they started taking the mil colone bill, and it started turning into this floppy, flies out of your hand, plastic, indestructible beach money. And for some reason, somebody in Canada is like, that's awesome. We should make all our money unfoldable,
We want that.
very difficult to use, and literally smells like maple syrup. The $100 bill smells like maple syrup.
It does. No, it's
Why?
not a joke.
Nobody
Absolutely.
knows.
It's
But
on
how?
purpose.
They made
No, we
it.
don't
They
know.
made it on purpose. Smell like maple syrup.
Yeah. We don't have a king, but we got that.
But this goes to.
It's a whole
I'm just
country
like,
of
how
those-
did they do that?
It's a whole country of those people that you hate in line at the store who are in front of you, who drop their money on the floor and you have to pick it up and you're in a rush. We got a whole country of those people because you can't hang on to your money now. It slips out of your hand. You're getting your change back. You drop it all over the place. It takes forever to go through the cashier. So we've gone cashless. That's what
We gave up, and I think that was
You're all so clumsy that.
that was the strategy. I think that was the strategy. The problem, like in Costa Rica, that'll never happen. Like people, I don't think half the people trust their bank card, and I don't blame them because I've used bank cards in Costa Rica and I've had problems, lots of problems. But it's got that thing where the cash drawer opens like a jack in the box, and all the money just flies out because it doesn't lay flat, it doesn't fold. I don't know who. I digress.
So, do the other notes smell like other things? Do you have a whole series? of
No, that'd be
different
great
smells?
though, wouldn't it? Like if the $5 bill smelled like Wilfrid Laurier or a Blue Jay.
But what does a blue jay smell like?
Labatt Blue. There's an idea. We're gonna pitch that.
Have you been traveling throughout Europe at all, or have you stayed like, boom, I'm staying home. I'm not getting
No,
involved in
I mean,
any of
I'm
this.
also working. In January, we still went. We went to visit a friend. Actually, we saw Greg
Really? Big nut?
McNutt.
Wow.
Yes.
All right.
We hung out with him and Catherine. You might know
Yep.
Catherine as well.
I remember
Yep.
Catherine. Yes, of course. Where was this?
So I'm friends with Catherine now.
France. Okay.
I'm friends with Catherine now.
Oh,
Now she's in Croatia.
wonderful.
Yeah, so we went there. We went to Zagreb. We did an escape room.
Oh.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, you're here, so you must have escaped.
We did escape somehow. We have really fun pictures to remember it.
So I'm always curious with different political systems and approaches, what, for example, your government is doing in support of the population in this lockdown phase. You know, maybe what some of the social programs in place are, what kind of income supplementation there is. What have you guys got going on there?
I know that they're helping sort of independent people who have their own company, like sort of small independent companies. I know they could ask for government aid. Apart from that, individually, I don't think so. I know my job got me sort of working at home kind of bonus of a couple hundred to be like, oh, if you need a new chair or I don't know, something to sit on. And they've sent me a lot of different things, my job, but that was not necessarily from the government. It's just like, well done, you're doing a good job, we're thinking of you. And then they send you a bag of nuts where you're like, this costs so much to send, why are you sending this? But
Yeah, send me some PPE. You're right. I don't need these nuts.
Do you?
they send me a picnic basket, they send me flowers once, they send me nuts, I don't know.
This sounds.
They want you to stay. That's great. That's very good.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy the working from home? I assume, like Cora and I talk about this a lot. We go back and forth, but mostly we like it. But how have you settled into the home office in the long term?
I go up and down. I think I would like the mix because I travel quite a distance to my job. The commute is quite far. I would work on the train, but still it would be an hour and a half on the train
Oof.
before getting to work and then an hour and a half back. Now, I wouldn't do that 5 days a week. I would go maybe 2, sometimes 3 days. It's fine because I get on the train, I cycle to the station, I get on the train, open my laptop, and I start working, and then I get off. It's a direct train, and then I just, take my laptop, walk into the university, and then keep working. And usually I'm quite flexible, so I'm able to leave again on time and just finish my hours in the train. So it's not so bad. So I mostly miss working with colleagues, or some things are hard to arrange over email. It costs a lot more time. And in general, I'm a researcher right now, and our research has suffered a lot with the COVID-19. Our training was canceled, then and every time we need to do all the work in order to get it started again, in order to plan everything, in order to get everyone scheduled in, and then, something happens again because it's unpredictable, and we just have to start all over again. And we don't know if all that work is going to lead somewhere, because everything might just be canceled again.
We're experiencing, or we're working with a lot of clients who are starting to develop podcast series on future of work, because this is pretty top of mind for organizations. And it's interesting. We've seen this kind of wave where at first everyone's like, great, we're never going to work again. This is awesome, but the novelty of that wears off very quickly. And then the reality of productivity shifts. I think, productivity went up for a lot of companies or a lot of organizations at first, because it's like, I'm not commuting anymore. I can get a lot more done. But what's interesting in a lot of these scenarios is that what they found is they caught up on a lot of kind of the minuscule to-dos that they had up to that point. But now when it gets down to actually getting work done, meeting, having creative conversations, starting projects and getting them on track, they're like, this is not working. So for us, we're seeing here in Canada, the conversations around having more blended environments, right? Where you can go in for 2-3 days a week, as you had mentioned, let's go in and we'll have those creative huddles. Let's have that interaction. Let's get these things started. And then the minutia of the work that you need the focus is best done at home, right? So that kind of blend, I think, is maybe a potential outcome for a lot of organizations that could be really good.
Yeah, I think
the blend is perfect.
I've heard a lot of really smart people talk about that idea where, people are very capable of checking task boxes by working at home. Today's my to-do list. I can do this, 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 and this, and do it. But at the same time, before pandemic life, we mostly took for granted the things about the workplace, where we focused on our long commutes or our time away from the family, and which are still, negatives, but taking for granted the collaboration and the camaraderie and the working and the creativeness of working with other people. Yeah. And so these people have been saying, as from a company perspective, that sure, you can get work done or you can sustain your current business, but it's really hard to grow it with the 100% at home. Just what you said, Corey, because new ideas are not getting started. It's hard to think of new things. It's hard to start new projects, hard to have that growth when everyone's scattered, and you just don't have that. I have half an idea. I need another person to complete this idea that I have. And if we're doing it on Zoom and someone's not available, it's really hard to get that done.
Add to the layer of that, using technology as this sort of intermediary to communicate. We're all sitting around for 45 minutes per session, looking at ourselves, waiting our turn to speak, right? You can't measure those social cues that can spiral into a creative snowball conversation, for example, where you really build on each.
We're sorry, you have reached a number. We're sorry, it is not necessary to dial.
And we're back.
Hey.
I have no idea what's wrong with the internet.
I have a lot of European clients, and they all say the same thing. In all of Europe, it's like, I don't know what happened there. My internet's terrible. I hear that every day.
The thing is, the internet is quite good, and I have video calls and nothing happens. You talk for hours, and then you're trying to do something, and you're like, apparently today it does not want to work.
Okay. It's Sunday. It's its day off, It gets tired.
That's right.
It's like, what are you doing? You're not working until tomorrow.
I'm still wearing track pants, so that counts.
Could you imagine smart internet? Like, you could put in your phone, you can turn off your notifications, you can set time limits for Instagram or whatever, that your phone won't let you log into Instagram if you set it for locking yourself out type of thing. if the internet would do that and just say, you're done. You've had enough today. You've been online for 6 hours. You're done. We're just turning this off now.
I have that.
Dude.
Yeah, I have a mesh wireless system, and then I can program either cutting off devices at certain times. So at 10 o'clock, an iPhone, for example, won't go online, or the Apple TV gets cut off. I don't have any kids, but if I did, this would be great. I don't use it because, I like the internet, but this is a thing for sure. I have to ask, because you'd mentioned earlier, Marieke, that there was something you called like an intelligent lockdown. We have a brand of water in Canada called Smart Water. I don't know what makes it smart. It's just water as far as I'm concerned. But what makes your lockdown intelligent?
I do not know. This is what our prime minister calls it.
Because it sounds techy,
honestly,
right? Yeah.
I know it sounds smart, right? It sounds like, oh, this is something we thought about, but no. I think the only difference is okay, we're not doing a complete lockdown. It's just sort of a variation on that, in that you are allowed to move. We also had the same with the masks. Nobody wore masks here ever in months. Because the point was that they said for a really long time, okay, research doesn't show that it helps that much. And also they were scared of, okay, medical professionals need the official masks. So you're not allowed to use that material and use it when they actually need it. They have come around, but only the last 2 weeks, maybe. And so after 7 months, because in the summer, they already changed to, okay, in the train, you have to use it, because they kept talking about the 1.5 meter distance that you need to keep. And as long as you keep that distance, it's not necessary to use a mask. Then you had to use it in public transport because you cannot keep that 1.5 meter distance. And now they're saying, okay, no, it's not going well with the cases. And they need to change the law, actually, because they now said, okay, no, you have to. It's mandatory to wear in all public inside spaces. You have to wear a mask, like shops or whatever. But they have to change the law in order to actually be able to do something about it as the police, I guess.
We have I think in Ontario, I don't know how vigilant you guys are, but Quebec, they love doling out $1,000 tickets to anybody who's not wearing a mask, right? Or in a public gathering of a certain size.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, though, in the Netherlands, the king just, raises the scepter and says, it's the law, and that's it.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It was a whole scandal this week because he went on vacation and the prime minister is responsible for everything that he does. And it was technically allowed. It was within the rules because he went to Greece, to his house, his vacation house. It was a yellow area. It was all fine. But obviously, that was just the week in which the prime minister said to everyone, okay, I know it's the autumn break, but stay at home. Try not to go anywhere. Advising everyone, please don't go anywhere. And then people heard, wait, but, what is he doing on vacation then? Shouldn't he give some kind of, example?
Yeah.
But it's kind of ridiculous.
Mixed signals all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's the same pretty much everywhere. We have similar things here with our leaders doing the same thing. And I think it just comes down to people, we can't stay home forever. So I wonder.
No.
And Corey and I, on the last show, we talked about my first test, my first swab experience. And I've been, kind of tongue-in-cheek, jokingly advising people to go get one. And actually here in Ontario, it's hard now because it's kind of seems inverted, but the numbers are so high now that you're not allowed to get tested anymore because unless you have symptoms and they're not, if you're asymptomatic or you're just trying to be careful, they're not letting people do it because the lines are too long.
I don't think they ever did that here. But
Corey mentioned this idea of this rapid test that's evolving and it's coming and it hasn't been approved yet, but what comfort level would you guys have? Because I think this is where it's headed. Short of a vaccine that may or may not be developed in 18 months or a year or 2 years or whatever the time frame is, of this, forget about going back to pre-pandemic life, of just, this normal being, if you want to go somewhere, you want to go to a restaurant, you want to go to any building, you want to go to whatever it is, where they just do this rapid test of people in line, and if it's a negative, comes back negative within whatever how rapid it is, you're allowed to go in and eat your meal, and if it's not, you gotta go somewhere else. That might be the end game of where we're headed here. Sports, the whole thing, right? You want to go to the game? Here's your rapid test. I don't even know what it's going to look like, how they're going to do this, but
I'm just thinking about the money.
A minute, you know?
I'm just thinking about how much that would cost with all the material and to be testing everyone. And if someone's going about their day, if I'm tested before going into work, then I want to go somewhere for a drink, I'm being tested, then I'm going somewhere for dinner. Like that doesn't...
I mean, I'm unpacking the question of how comfortable I would be with it.
Yeah.
You know, if we were to say, oh, it's a complication on your Apple Watch now. Good morning, you're negative. It's 16 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. And then you go on about your day. It's like, okay, that's cool.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like a Black Mirror episode, but I think they could do that somehow. I'm
not comfortable, though, is the person, as an example, who may or may not be responsible for assigning my table in a restaurant is also responsible for determining whether or not I have a potentially deadly virus. I'm a little bit concerned. They can barely keep a reservation at a restaurant, let alone tell me you're negative, come on in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no foolproof way to do that yet. So, I mean, it's purely hypothetical. But to answer your question, I would be, I guess, comfortable enough with it if it was proven an effective method, right? Because this virus it's pretty nasty, and it finds its way no matter what you seem to do. So again, I heard, and I say facetiously, it's no different than someone who says to their girlfriend, I'm not going to use a condom because you had a pregnancy test and you're not pregnant. So you're not pregnant, we're good to go, right? And it's like the test itself does not determine whether or not you are contagious or someone else could readily get it. Marieke is frozen because she's either horrified by my analogy or the great internet.
We're sorry, you have reached a number. We're sorry, it is not necessary to dial.
Bonjour.
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 I think I'm gonna have to put a sound effect in the podcast of every moment where the internet goes out, like a record slowing down or something,
Well, this time you froze up first and then it just stopped.
Oh, and you froze for us.
Aw.
Oh,
we thought you were just horrified by Corey's question.
I did not hear his question.
Oh.
I think that's where most people would like to leave it with me.
What was your question, Corey?
I don't think it was more just a comment that, again, the notion that testing is the panacea here isn't necessarily true, because just because you're tested doesn't mean that you're not susceptible or that you might, like, it's not a perfect system, right? I think it's important that if this is the direction we need to go, where in order to do certain things, we have to pass a test, then those tests have to be ubiquitous and effective and rapid. And I to your point, Marieke, the expense and the logistics of that are enormous. Mm-hmm. By the time we maybe get to that place, we could have, something close to a viable vaccine.
True.
Maybe a lot of the energy is being spent on that might be better. I don't know. What do I know? I'm a guy in a room in Canada. I'm not a politician.
I think the other thing is that the privacy aspect is they started using this Corona app right now. It's an application, but most of the critique around it has not been, oh, why is there an app? But the privacy, who has access to this information about you? Because it's medical information, and anyone who does research knows that you have to jump through a million different hoops in order to deal with any kind of information. So for me thinking, oh, I'm going to a restaurant and this person then has, this medical information of me, that's impossible. It needs to go through, a medical commission, a medical ethical commission, a committee that needs to decide whether that's okay to do, and all those kind of things. So I think in my brain that just blocks it. Like, okay, that's not possible.
Yeah.
The privacy aspect of it just, I don't think, at least here, it wouldn't.
It's definitely a factor. I was just thinking about the sports that are happening or are concluding now in North America, and that's basically how they've been able to function with baseball, basketball, hockey. The NHL just finished, and they tested the athletes every day, twice a day in a lot of cases, to be able to play in their bubble. And baseball didn't even do a quote unquote a bubble. They just traveled around the U.S., but they were testing them every day so they could play. And the players that tested positive couldn't play for a couple of days, et cetera, et cetera. And there's obviously an argument there that that's very elitist, and the privileged and athletes, rich athletes, are getting access to these tests where the common folk are not. And that's certainly valid. I just wonder if there's, before, aside from the vaccine being the goal, because obviously that's the goal, where there's just going to have to be, if the daily cases are over this number, 200, 300, arbitrary number, then we do this, versus this whole wait and see and just kind of juggling with our minds, or don't know what's going to happen. So if there's a number, if it's over 300 for 5 days in a row, we go back into this intelligent lockdown. If it's under 300, because I think we're all struggling with what is the goal. And the goal is to have, as you say, Corey, to keep the numbers down so hospitals have a space for us if and when we need it. And what is that number? And that number is different in every city and every town in the world. But maybe it's just that's the answer, to have that more open communication of what number is the target.
I think you raised a good point on privacy as well. The EU has a very different perspective on this than North America. We're just like, whatever. And I'm with you. I can't imagine what my Facebook feed would look like after Olive Garden learns that I've tested positive for COVID-19. So I think we're at that place that it's not feasible. The end game, though, is, if I understand correctly, the science behind this, despite a vaccine and despite those being immunized, it's not like COVID-19 goes away. All of these SARS they're out there all the time. It's just part of now our ecosystem. So I don't know even what the end goal is, and I don't think that science, again, has a very good PR firm. There's not an effective method of communicating. Here's what we don't know. Here's what we've learned, and here's what we're trying to do about it. And there certainly doesn't seem to be a consensus in how to effectively communicate this. I know from culture to culture and from political system to political system, we have to factor those in, but this just seems to me like there should still be a concise message after 7 months that's very, very clear.
I mean, I think what people, forget or maybe don't know is how long it takes to test something and how many subjects you need to have, and how many, the flu, we've been studying that for I don't know how many decades probably. And then we have more evidence. But any other thing that people study, scientists often disagree. And after so many researches, we can say, okay, probably this is what causes something, or probably this is what helps or doesn't help. And then they find new things. So 7 months is a really short time, and they've already accomplished a lot. It's just that people are used to, okay, just a quick Facebook status, or like a clickbait article which says, I can't even come up with anything right now, but something really clear cut, like this is going to help, or a mask is going to save your life, when it's not that 100% clear cut, especially because how people use masks, that they're non-medical masks. So a lot of things are still, the aerosols and everything are passing through it, and people are trying to do the best they can. They are doing research, then other people need to see, okay, was that research done correctly? How is it done? What is done? And it's just a really short time, but the problem is that people are stuck at home, and people need some kind of perspective. They need some kind of way to say, okay, how can I have a social life? How can I find, meaning in my life when I'm looking at these walls all the time? Maybe in summer I could be in the garden, but right now winter is coming along, and am I just going to be inside? Like, can I see friends? I want to do this responsibly. Other people see other kinds of news. Everyone is still in their bubble, where if you see certain news, that's what's going to get repeated to you, and other people will see news that says, no, actually it's a conspiracy theory, and it doesn't exist, or it's just a flu, or whatever it is. And that's what's going to get repeated to you by whatever media you are consuming. So,
but I don't know, I'd be curious to see how much of the population buys into this this gobbledygook, because certainly the news organizations like to balance coverage and show you here's what a lot of people are saying and here's what a lot of other people are saying, and they're diametrically opposed, and that's the way the world is. But it makes it appear like this is a 50-50 thing.
Yeah, probably not.
Where it's certainly, it can't be the case. We're not, I know the world is largely run by D students, but we're not all that dumb. And, you know, to your point as well on the science is, you come from the world of, hey, you got to publish. And the more attention your publication gets, the better it is for those grants. And we're in a place too where there's so little study being done, right? Because so many labs are closed. We just live in a world where it's like, you know, a fomite on a steel surface in a lab that can't be replicated is something that now is translated into a news headline in the world. Yeah. It's like, it's on doorknobs and you're gonna die. And it's like, well, that's a leap. That's a
long leap. That's
where I'm saying, like, if science had a PR firm that said, okay, we're gonna get this message out the right way, as opposed to letting like local news organizations dissect the paper, then I don't know. That
science PR firm would be a great idea. That reminds me of, have you seen that John Oliver episode from, I think it's a few years ago, where he's talking about climate change and the misrepresentation of on news outlets, of just because they have these quote unquote debates on all news networks, and he says the problem with this dichotomy of some people say this, some people think it's real, some people think it's not real, is that you turn on the news and you have a debate on climate change, and you have one person arguing in favor or that it exists and one person arguing that it doesn't, but that's not a statistical representation of how many people are on one side of that argument and how many people are actually on the other side of that.
Because most of us are home and believe this is real and think that climate change exists and are looking forward to having 5G. So I think we're in a place where the vast majority of us,
especially in Europe.
Yeah. So it gets to a place with me where I have to start turning off the noise. Like I hate using those kind of fruity phrases like digital detox or these kind of things. But sometimes now I'm just going to pick up a book. I can't.
You did not invent that word, Corey?
No.
No, it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Sounds like something you could have invented.
Reading books.
Oh, thank you. I think.
Next
time. Write it down. So
Reading is good. Reading is good.
Have you read any good books lately?
I'm reading this. Wait. I have it right here. It's always useful to point to things when people can only hear you, but okay.
Yep.
I'm reading Girl, Woman, Other.
Oh.
It's supposed to be really good. I only got through the first part. Because we're also honestly watching a lot of Netflix.
How many stars in the first part of the book? Is it good? 5 stars so far?
Yeah, no, it's written differently than other books. I feel like the style is different. Like, for example, there are this threw me off in the beginning. It just continues. There's no periods, there's no exclamation. There's question marks I can see because I guess they need them. There's commas in between, but the sentences just sort of go on underneath each other. And that means it's good to just read inside your head. I don't know if you do that, but if I read, I hear the sentences in my head.
Okay. That's interesting.
So
And I see things happening, but it's harder it's not the standard way of how a book's written, I guess. So that took me some pages to get used to it.
How long have you been locked inside for? Because you might be at that COVID phase, and I heard this is a symptom where you don't see punctuation anymore.
I can show you. There's no punctuation in there.
I'll take your word for it. What are you reading these days, Woody?
I actually am reading a book called Wild, by I want to say Cheryl Strayed. I might be mispronouncing that, but it is the book on which the Reese Witherspoon movie called Wild was made, and it's essentially the female version of Into the Wild, I think it's called, where the guy, the teenage guy goes into the wild and dies in Alaska, and Sean Penn makes the movie, etc. It's basically the female version of that, except she doesn't die. She's still alive, and it's her. She hikes the Pacific Coast Trail from California up to Oregon, over 3 or 4 months, and it's a very similar sentiment to the guy's story, where she's coming out of a marriage, she's getting divorced, she's finding herself, etc., etc., and she hikes the trail and things that evolve. But the movie was phenomenal, and my partner has the book, and I've started to read it, and it's very, very good. And usual, it's better than the movie. So
Right.
so far so good.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm wrapping up my my book on self-compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff. It's wonderful. I'm moving out of self-esteem into self-appreciation. Good times. Good times.
Does it have sentences?
Lots. And punctuation.
Punctuation.
And exercises. Yeah. It's very practical. It's very practical.
Who needs punctuation?
Weird. Authors?
Yeah. Let's see.
But you can still, you should read it, because you can still, it's fine, because if you hear the sentences in your head, because it's month 8 or something of lockdown, you can hear the sentences in your head, and it just flows really well, because the sentences are still on a new line. You can still see that
When you read, at least when I read, I don't necessarily full stop every time there's a period, right? I do kind of flow into the next one, but it's nice to see where the author wants you to pause.
Have either of you read Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce?
No.
I'm pretty sure, but it's been a long time, so I'm trying to remember.
He's I think he was the Ulysses guy, right? He, for some reason, when I was like 16, I'm like, I'm going to read Ulysses. Okay.
As you do.
Well, I read Portrait of a Lady at 16, so
Fair
Henry
enough.
James.
As a primer to that book, though, I read his shorter piece, and if you might recall, it opens with this incredibly simplistic dialogue, almost like, because he's writing as if he were the child, right? So it's these kind of broken sentences, and it's about cows. I see cow, moo, and that's how the book starts, and then the language sophistication evolves as the artist begins to grow and evolve as well. So it's pretty interesting conceptually. Like all Joyce, it's challenging intellectually, but it's certainly fun to read.
That's cool. That's a cool concept.
Yeah. Punctuation.
Moo.
Who needs it?
Is that onomatopoeia? Is that what that is? Moo, when you give a sound to...
You're such an English teacher.
Moo, cow, moo.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm Corey.
Feel like... And I'm Woody.
What do you feel? Wait, you're feeling something. Feel it.
I feel like we did this. We did the show just like that book, just backwards. Like we're going down towards the cow now, and we started in with the moo.
Don't we all end up at the moo? I'm still Corey,
and I'm still Woody.
I'm pretty sure I'm still Marieke.
And this was the ISOcast.
We're sorry, you have reached a number